Greetings and salutations. Welcome to this episode of Playwright Spotlight. Before we begin, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment down below, and share this show with a friend. If you're listening to us on your favorite podcast platform, be sure to leave a 5-star review and subscribe to the channel. My guest today is a founding member of Latino Theatre Company, where she is currently both Associate Artistic Director and Resident Playwright. She is the recipient of 2 Los Angeles Drama Critics Circle Awards for her plays A Mexican Trilogy and The Mother of Henry. Her plays Solitude, Dementia, Hope, Part 2 of A Mexican Trilogy, and The Mother of Henry were all critics' picks in the Los Angeles Times, and her holiday pageant play, La Virgen de Guadalupe, Dios Nancin, was featured in both Los Angeles Times and the New York Times. She is the recipient of a GLAAD Media Award and multiple Ovation nominations. Her most recent play, Blow Away the Clouds, will be part of South Coast Repertory's Pacific Playwrights Festival in May 2026. She adapted her play A Mexican Trilogy for television with Imagine Entertainment and worked on Amazon's recent hit series Cross. And her play, The Storyteller of East LA, opened April 18th and runs through May 17th at the Los Angeles Theater Center in downtown Los Angeles. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Evelina Fernandez. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
And I apologize. You gave me a course in or a pronunciation, and I still butchered it. It never fails.
It's okay. It's Dios Nancin.
Yeah. That's my gringo for you. Let's start with the founding of the Latino Theatre Company. I mean, we had a lot of guests on. Oscar. I was going to say Oscar. He's gonna get me for that one. Oscar, gosh darn it, Oscar Mayer. My glasses are fogging up.
Oliver Meyer.
Oliver Meyer. I don't know why I want to call him Oscar Meyer all the time. I always do.
You're not the only one.
And then the Playwright for Level Up that just opened last weekend.
Yeah, Gabe Rivas.
Yeah, Gabe, and amongst others. So let's start with how this founded and how you got it going and the obstacles you may have ever overcome, or did it just flow and fall into place?
Well, our roots are in the Chicano theater movement, which the Chicano movement kind of came out of the civil rights movement. And so my husband and I, Jose Luis Valenzuela, were part of a Chicano theater company based in Santa Barbara, California, called El Teatro de la Esperanza. And then we moved to Los Angeles. I'm from Los Angeles, born and raised. So I moved back and he came with me. And so that's when LA Actors Theater was building the Los Angeles Theater Center downtown. And so they were looking for somebody to run their Latino Theater Lab. And so Jose Luis applied. He went to Bill Bushnell and said, I need a job. And Bill Bushnell said, I can't pay you to do this, and he said, well, what can you pay me to do? He said, well, I need an accountant. And so Jose Luis said, okay. So he was hired as an accountant, and that's kind of how we started as the Latino Theater Lab, just actors getting together, working out in the rehearsal rooms, after hours and stuff. And then little by little, we started creating pieces, and Bill Bushnell gave us a slot every season. So that's kind of how we started the Latino Theater Lab at the LATC. And then after the LATC closed in 1991, we became the Latino Theatre Company, an independent company.
Wow. Okay. So it's been completely Latino Theatre Company since 91?
Yeah, since 91. So we're 40 years, because we started in 1985 at the old LATC. And so we've been together for 40 years. It's a long time, longer than most marriages.
So what was the first piece that was originated there that your company was responsible for?
We did La Víctima, which was a piece way back then about immigration and things that are, haven't changed too much. So it was La Víctima. And then we did.
And that was a company piece it was written by a company member?
It was written by El Teatro de la Esperanza, which was the company that we came from Santa Barbara. So so we did that play. It was a big hit. And then after that, Jose Luis directed The Promise by Jose Rivera, and we did Roosters by Milcha Sanchez Scott, and we did Stone Wedding also by Milcha. And so we did around 4 or 5, 6 plays before the theater center closed down in 1991.
And then when did you jump in as far as playwriting goes? I'm assuming you started out acting first and then jumped into playwriting eventually?
That's right. Yeah, I was an actor. And I mean, I've been writing since I was a kid. You know, in grammar school, elementary school, I was a writer then, and then when I worked with El Teatro de la Esperanza, I rekindled that interest in writing, and then we started creating a piece together, which was August 29th at the old LATC, which they also produced. Using the collective creation, which is a methodology that we used in El Teatro de la Esperanza, and that was taught to us by some of the Latin American maestros that came up here to work with us.
And what was that? What does that look like, if you will? What does that entail?
Collective creation. Yeah. Going out into the community, seeing what issues are affecting the community, and then interviewing people, and then creating a piece using the research that you've done.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now
and then, so with August 29th, I really started writing, right? There was, and we all wrote, but at the end of the day, there were 2 of us that wrote the play. And so that's how I got back into writing.
So that I think that you pretty much answered the question. So those early pieces, those collectives, were collaborative with another writer. Where you kind of was co-author, co-writer?
With all of us.
Okay.
And then the first play I wrote on my own was How Else Am I Supposed to Know I'm Still Alive? And that was in 1987. Wow, okay. A whole lifetime ago.
So when you said that you had been writing, elementary school and through high school and whatnot, and I don't know if you wrote in college as well.
Yeah, but I didn't write in college.
So okay. So what were you writing before you got into playwriting? What kind of, was that just prose? Was that just fiction, nonfiction?
Yeah, short stories. Just short stories.
And then how did that?
And then when I was in Teatro de la Esperanza, then we started writing monologues and started writing scenes, and that's when I thought, oh, I like this. I like it. I hadn't written in a long time. And so then after the experience of August 29th, which was very successful at LATC, I decided I wanted to write a piece myself. And I wanted to write about women, about Mexican-American women. Because as an actor, the roles that were there for me as an actor, the auditions I would go out for was always the hooker, the maid, the suffering mother, that kind of, gang member, that kind of thing. And, those weren't the kind of women that I was raised by. Sure. And so I wanted to write pieces that reflected the reality that I knew about these women.
So what was that process like for diving into your first play?
Yeah.
What kind of things what did you learn? What did you have to overcome? Or again, did it just fall into place like it's supposed to?
Well, there's a cultural center in East LA, in Lincoln Heights actually, called Plaza de la Raza. And they were having a contest, a playwriting contest. And so Sal Lopez, who's part of our company, kind of dared me to write a piece for it. And I kind of dared him. And so it just kind of fell into place because it was done very quickly. Mm-hmm. And I said, I'm going to write a play for this competition, and I did, and I wrote it with two specific actors in mind, the two other female actors in our company, Lupe Ontiveros and Angela Moya, very talented actresses, and so I wrote it for them, and it kind of fell into place, and it won the competition, so that's kind of how that whole thing started. And then once I wrote that, I entered it into a competition at Universal Studios, and it won that too. And so then it was adapted into a short film through that. And then that's how I kind of got into adapting my plays into films. Yeah.
And was that first play that you wrote, was that full length or was it?
No.
Okay.
It was a one act.
Okay.
That was a one act.
And how many drafts did you go through before, or were you writing it with those two actresses in mind as you went and say, okay, this is my draft. Can I hear it? I want to hear you guys read it, and let me adjust from there. Or did you just?
I just wrote it. I was very arrogant.
Apparently it worked.
I just thought, I know this. I'm going to write it. So, I wrote it.
But so where did you learn, or how did you teach yourself, perhaps, structure and story and the dialogue and all that goes along with that, especially for something that just...
Yeah, I'm self-taught, and I have a lot of acting experience, and so when I write, I basically play the roles.
Okay.
And structure is something that comes to me, pretty naturally. It's not. Well, okay. I did go to one course, and that was story structure. A story structure course by what's his name, McGee, something McGee. I don't remember his first
Bobby
name.
McGee.
No. But I did go to that story structure. It was a weekend. And so that was very, very helpful. Yeah.
So when you're kind of acting out the roles that you're writing,
yeah.
What's your approach to making each voice different when you're kind of acting it out yourself? And I know I'm putting you on the spot because you're not in the midst of writing right now. This always happens in an episode where I throw a question like that
No,
out.
that's okay. Well, I should say this first. I write about things that I know. I write about my community. I write about people that I know. I write stories about my family that were told to me by my mother. So a lot of my plays take place like a Mexican trilogy. It starts at the beginning of the last century and ends in 2005. And so all the characters, all the stories in that trilogy, it spans 100 years, are stories and people that either I knew through my mother's storytelling or through my grandmother's storytelling. And so that's how I know the different characters. So that's who they are. They're these characters that I know through the oral history of my family.
How did those stories, I don't want to say influence writing, but I mean, how did how did it? How did I just translate? I guess I don't know. I mean, were there things you left out? Were there things you included? Did you take creative license?
Yeah. So much creative license.
Okay.
I mean, because you have to, make a story out of it. You have to make a play out of it. You have to create structure for telling the story, right? So, yeah, I mean, they're based on, or, they spark the idea, or they're inspired by the stories that I know. And I mean, there are a few of my plays that are not inspired by the stories that I know, but the majority of them are. The majority of them are. And even the play that we're opening April 18th is based on real life, based on my own experience when my mother was suffering from dementia. So almost everything I write is about, something that I know, or somebody that I know, or an experience that I've had.
Well, they always say that almost every character is based on someone you know or experience, or a part of you, as it is.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's really true in my writing, in my plays.
You use the word trilogy, so is that three different plays in one play, or is it a play that, and then you wrote the next one, and maybe that showed a year later, and then you wrote a third one, and then, or was it like 3 plays in one night that, so like 3 different acts in one night, but they're referred to as a trilogy?
We did it that way.
Okay.
But the way it started was part 2. We did part 2 first. I wrote part 3 first, and then we did part 2, and then we did part 1. And then we did them all in an evening together, which we called a Mexican trilogy, an American story. So when we did that, people would be at the theater all day. We take a break and have dinner in the lobby. And then people would go back for, the other half and a full play. So 1.5 and 1.5. So we stopped at intermission of the second play, and then we had dinner. Then we came back for the second act of the second play, and then the third play.
That's a pretty clever way to pull that off.
Yeah.
To get people to come back in.
So yeah, that's how we did it. And
how long of a night did that make? 6
hours.
Wow.
It was 6 hours. So many people came and did the 6 hours. I mean, the way we did it is, you could come back, you could come and do the first half and then come back another night and experience the rest of it. But so many people, did the 6 hours, and it was really great. It was beautiful. And we, in the lobby, we gave people the opportunity to tell their family stories, because so many stories just never get told, right? And that's especially true for people of color. It's especially true for LGBTQ people. Those stories, are not told. And so in the case of my family, my grandparents arrived during the Mexican Revolution in 1910, and so we have 5 generations here in the United States. And so it's important to me to place our stories within an American context, because, we were here for the Great Depression. We did fight in World War II. We did fight in Vietnam. We were here for the Civil Rights Movement. We experienced everything that everybody else experienced in this country, but you never see those stories. Right. So that's very important to me.
So when it comes to the characters in this trilogy, are there carryovers into the part 2 that might be in part 1?
Oh, yeah.
Or is it different generations that
Different generations, but you do follow some characters. Like if in part 2 they're teenagers, and then in part 3 they're adults.
Got it. Okay.
And so you follow their story. You follow their story.
And the reason why I'm asking is because you were talking about a huge span of time, so that's why I wasn't sure if there is carryover of those characters, or they do come back a little older or anything like that.
Yeah, they do come back a little older. We were able to pull it off with 12 actors. Yeah. And so actors played different roles, younger actors played, and then the older actors played those characters in, part 3.
So you said you wrote these out of order.
Uh-huh.
How did that help, or did that make it more complicated, to kind of, if you work at the end, well, I know where it ends, so now how do I get to that point? Or, because you said you started with part 3 first, or you wrote part 2 first?
I wrote part 3 first, but that's before I knew it was going to be a trilogy.
Okay, and how did you decide that, and then how did you accomplish that?
And then I wrote part 2, and part 2, we did a reading of it, and it went really, really well. And then so we decided to produce part 2, and then Jose Luis, our artistic director, said, "You know what? This should be a trilogy." Okay. So then I had to go to part 3 and figure out, okay, this is this character and this is that character, and kind of figure it out that way. It was kind of a puzzle. And then when I wrote part 1, then it was easier because now I knew where these characters had to go.
Did going that direction, did it cause changes to the other 2, where it's just like, okay, now I got to go back, I got to fix this because this affects that? Oh,
yeah, a lot of changes. I mean, I had to fit it all in. I mean, because when I wrote part 3, I never thought that they were going to be the same characters as part 2. But then when we decided it was going to be a trilogy, then I had to turn the characters in part 3 into the characters that were in part 2. If that makes sense.
I think so. Now, how did you keep track of that as a playwright to really kind of, not go insane, I guess, for lack of a better phrase, because that seems like it's a lot to juggle. So, I mean,
it was a lot to juggle, but it wasn't too much work, because I knew the end already, right? Right. I knew the end, so for me, it was easier to figure out where those characters were going at the end, and so I had to make changes to part 2 too, because if I wanted the characters to end here, the story to end here, then so there's one character that's 100 years old, right? Mm. So she's the matriarch of the family that comes as a little girl, and so I really had to follow her story. Right. Had to take her all the way to the end where she's 100 years old, and all of her children have died already. And so now she's living with her granddaughter, because she's like a relic that, they're handing her off. Now she's living with her granddaughter. And so that was the most important character that I had to follow.
In that case, is it one continual arc, or does she have an arc in all 3 pieces, or both for that matter?
Well, she begins in part 1. In part 2, she doesn't have much. Okay, right. In part 2, she doesn't have much. I mean, they refer to her a lot. She doesn't live in that story. Okay. She's alive through a phone call, and because people talk about her and say, well, she said this or she said that, but she's not in that one. But in part 3, she's totally prominent. I mean, the story is basically about her not wanting to die. Mm. which is kind of what the story of the storyteller is too. Hey.
So when you decided it was going to be a trilogy, I know that you know how it was going to end, but did those changes change the original ending that you had written when you wrote part 3 to begin with, if that makes sense?
No, the original ending didn't end. Didn't change. It did not change. That's where I wanted it to go, because what she talks about it, there's sacred words, right? Mm-hmm. There's words of wisdom that come from pre-conquest literature in Mexico. Okay. It's called the Huehuetlatoli. So at the beginning of the trilogy, they impart those words, right? And so they tell her, don't ever forget that you come from someone, that you are born by the grace of someone, that you are both the spine and the offspring of your ancestors. And so they bless her with those words at the beginning. And so, but as time goes on, she forgets the words, right? She can't remember what they are anymore. So that's her struggle in part 3, where she knows that she has to share those words with her family, her granddaughter, her great-granddaughter, but she can't remember them. And so the end of the play is when she is finally able to remember the words and to pass them on.
You mentioned earlier on that you started writing roles for yourself based on what you were casting. Mm-hmm. Is that something that you advise a lot of actors to do if they're not getting those opportunities out there? And how? What advice do you have on how to achieve that, if you will?
Well, I believe in creating opportunity for yourself.
Agreed.
I know that people, have a dream, but the only way that dream can come true is if you make it come true.
Sure.
There's no way that you're going to be able to sit in your house waiting for the phone to ring
100%.
And, fulfill your dreams. Your dreams have to be fulfilled by you. And so my advice would be, hey, if you want to act and you're not getting work, write something for yourself to act. Write a play for yourself, write a monologue, or so yeah, that's what I believe in. That's what I tell my kids. Both of them are actors.
Sure.
And I tell them, you have to create opportunities for yourself. It's not just going to happen, especially of course, yeah, once in a while, there's a miracle and, somebody goes from rags to riches, but that's not the norm. And especially for people of color.
Sure. And the reason why I ask is because most, like if I'm doing a workshop with young actors, I will tell them that things are more accessible than they realize, and stop waiting for somebody to give you permission to what you want to do. Now, my advice usually is just, if there's a role that you always wanted to play, quit waiting for somebody to say yes and just go get the rights to that play. Produce it. You already know people, directors, techies, produce it yourself, raise the money, you can hopefully make your money back. If you've ever wanted to play, I don't know, was it Doc in what's the, in Babe, that the, oh gosh, what's the name of that play? The 3 sisters that are in that. No, I'm drawing a blank. That's embarrassing.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, forget it. The point being is, like, if you wanted to do that, just go, get the rights and produce it. That being said, that's very different than writing something for yourself. And in the past, I really thought that was the issue with LA theater in the day, because I think a lot of LA theater had a really bad rap for a little while. When I first moved down here, people didn't go see it. And usually in my I had a hypothesis that it was usually an actor who wrote something for themselves to showcase their talent,
Oh, yeah.
who didn't know how to write, and then directed themselves as well. And that was just, so how did you achieve that? Do you direct your own work as well?
No, I don't direct. I don't direct my own work. Jose Luis is my collaborator. He's directed almost all of my shows. And he's a wonderful director. And so it's an ensemble of actors that have been together for 40 years and a director. And we've just developed this theatrical language, an aesthetic. And we were just a bunch of actors getting together just to, work out in a rehearsal room. And over these years, we're an independent theater company. We run the Los Angeles Theater Center. We produce 8 plays a year. We're an equity house. So it's possible. I mean, if we can do it, anybody can do it. Well, I can't say anybody, but, you have to have the passion. You have to, want to make the sacrifice. Right. I mean, it's not easy. So, not everybody's a writer. I'm not gonna say anybody can write. No, that's not true. But I think anybody can try to create an opportunity for themselves. And now, people are making films with their phones. Right. There's so many possibilities, so many more possibilities now than there were when I was a young actor.
Do you think because you were coming from a place of collaboration with other people that's what kind of kept your ego in check and didn't go down a road of like, look how great I am because I'm a wonderful actor and I wrote these wonderful words and
Absolutely, 100%. I work in collaboration. I don't work alone. When I do work alone, I kind of get lost. For example, the play that we're reading at South Coast Rep, that was a commission, so I didn't develop that with the company that I work with. Okay. I wrote that on my own. But as soon as I had a dirty draft of it, I had them read it, and give me notes. And so, their notes are important to me. And then I went back and, rewrote it until I had a first draft.
Okay. So how many passes do you make before you feel like you've got a functional dirty draft, if you will?
Well, it depends.
Okay.
It's different every time. I'll let people that I know and trust read a dirty draft, because they know me. I feel comfortable. It's not ready, but I want to hear your thoughts. I want your opinion. I want you to give me ideas.
Sure.
And so that's usually the company. And so I don't know. I maybe 2 drafts.
Okay.
Two drafts. Then I'll have a dirty draft and then show it to the people that I trust, and then listen to what they have to say, and then go back again and write 3 more drafts. I think with the Blow Away the Clouds, I might have done maybe 5 or 6 drafts before I sent in the first draft. Yeah.
Okay. Do you write? Do you do rewrites during rehearsal?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm still doing rewrites.
Right now, still?
Yes.
When you open Saturday?
Yes.
I'm sorry, you opened Saturday.
We opened Saturday.
We're recording this prior, so.
They're not huge rewrites at this point because, you have to let the actors settle in.
Sure.
You have to be considerate of the actors. I'm not going to restructure stuff. I'm not going to, write a brand new scene and stick it in the play at this point. But, words here and there, a different way of saying something, cutting lines, stuff like that. I'm still doing that. But, I'm very close to not doing that anymore.
Okay. At what point do you find you say to yourself, okay, I'm happy with this, I'm done? Or is there ever a point where you know?
Never. I never. I mean, now I'm looking at this play that, that opened on April 18th. And I could still make it better. I know I could still make it better. Now, will I ever revisit it after this run? It depends, It just depends if somebody else wants to do it, which nobody ever wants to do my plays.
If you want to make it a trilogy.
If I want to make it a trilogy. I don't know. I would revisit it and do things a little differently, probably.
Why do you say no one wants to do your plays? Why do you think that?
Because I never send them to anybody.
Well, that's they can't not want to do your plays if they don't know it exists.
No, I never send them to anybody because I always do them with our company. So, if somebody, contacts me and says, can we read your script? We're interested. Of course, I'll send it. Like they did part 3 of the trilogy in Denver.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So if somebody asks, but I'm just not good at it. I don't. And my agent is for film and TV.
Sure.
Right. She's not for stage. So, I mean, if I ask her, to send a play to a theater or something, she will. Of course she will. But that's not her focus.
I want to go back a little bit when we were discussing drafts and putting it out there and letting people read it. What kind of feedback are you looking for? Is there anything specific that you want to hear, or is it just I'll take whatever you've got on your mind and take what works and leave what doesn't? Or
I always want to hear if the story, if it's a compelling story,
okay.
If it's something that you want to know about. Do you want to know what's going to happen to these characters? Do you care? Okay. Do you care about these characters? And if you do, or what do you love about the characters, or what don't you like about the characters, or what doesn't ring true to you? What doesn't ring true to you? Are the characters, well developed? Are they distinct? Because sometimes you can write a play and everybody is talking the same way.
Right, sure.
So that's important to me, but mostly the story. Okay. I'm into structure, even though I never studied it. I'm into structure, and I believe in it. Because I've meet other playwrights who are very successful, and I'll go speak at their class, for example, and they'll tell their students, just write. It doesn't matter. Don't worry about structure at all. And my thing is, I believe in structure. I believe in structure. I think that when an audience experiences a beginning, a middle, and an end of a story, it's enjoyable to them. I mean, that's enjoyable. I don't think they enjoy coming out of a play and going, what was that about? I mean, I just don't believe people enjoy not knowing what they just saw.
Sure, yeah.
So I do believe in structure.
Do you ever play around with unconventional structures? Like, putting scenes out of order to where,
Well, yeah, this play is not linear at all. I mean, it's in the present, it's in the past, and in the past, it goes into the past.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So, I guess it's not a conventional structure.
Sure.
But when you watch it, I think it makes sense.
Sure. So how did we get here?
Yeah. It makes sense because The play has a narrator.
Okay.
So the narrator is telling the story. But then within the story that she's telling, somebody's telling a story,
Right.
right?
Right.
So there's 3 realities there. Well, there's actually 4, because then the character who has dementia is in her mind, right? So then there's that world when she's talking to her guardian angel. And so there was like 4 different worlds.
So, did you write it linearly, or did you write it that way going through, or did you write it linearly and then mix it up?
No, I wrote it that way. I think the only thing that I mixed up a little bit were, because it's called The Storyteller.
Sure.
So those stories, the stories that the storyteller is telling in the play, those I kind of mixed up
Okay.
a little bit. But I did write it as the narrator telling a story, and then with the story that she's telling, the grandmother is telling a story. Mm-hmm. So I wrote it that way.
How did you keep track? Because it seems fairly complex. So I'm just curious how,
It's not complex.
No? Okay.
No.
Okay.
It sounds complex when you try to explain it.
Well, I mean from the writing aspect.
Oh, from the writing.
Yeah, obviously, I'm sure
aspect.
it makes sense in that realm, but to keep track of everything, stories within stories, and that's a story that's being told by it.
Yeah, it was. I think it's kind of confusing. I mean, in the rehearsal process, the director was like, because I would say, remember, this is in the past,
right.
And then, okay, yeah, this is in the past, and then I would have to say, but this is in the past. Right? So how do you do that? How do you show that on stage? Through lighting, through sound, through the design, all of that, so that the audience realizes, okay, this is the big story.
Sure.
And, now we're looking into the other story.
Right. And I can comprehend that. I'm just saying, how do you keep track as the playwright, as you're writing this, and not going like, wait, I'm confused because
Well, I guess it's kind of confusing.
On the page is where I'm coming from, rather than on the stage. As you're keeping track, how do you keep track of everything that you're doing on the page when it's like, okay, this is in the past, but or did you was it really easy for you to really keep track of what was happening?
It wasn't easy for me to keep track, but it was easy for me to write what I wanted to write.
Right.
And then later on go back and go, okay, this is the past, and then this is the past. So it was not very confusing for me, but I did have to go through the script and kind of check what was the past and what was the past.
Do you outline when you write?
No.
Just sit down and do it. Good for you.
Well, but I always know where I'm going.
Okay.
I always know. I can't write a play unless I know where I'm going. So I don't. I have written outlines, but I usually don't follow them. Because as a playwright, you think, okay, I should start out with an outline.
Sure. I can't do it either.
And I do try, but I usually don't follow the outline. But I do know where I'm going. And I do have to know where I'm going. I can't just start writing without knowing where I'm going. I have to know the story in my head. I have to know this is the story that, and even if it changes, which it usually does, I have to start out knowing what the story is and where I'm going, where I'm going to end. When I start writing, it usually changes.
Sure.
But that's how I have to start.
Does that mean, do you ever write the end first then in that regard, since you know? So you know where you're going to go and you know where you're going to end?
No, I never write the end first. There will be a point when I'm writing the play and I feel like, okay, I have to write the end because I can't figure out what to do in the middle.
Okay.
And so I usually write the end that I thought was going to be the end at the beginning. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So I write that end, and then that helps me figure out what I'm doing in the middle.
Is that everybody's got their process? That's why we have these conversations, because you never know what playwright out there listening is going to like, of course, that makes sense. Now I know what to do. So when that happens and you write the ending that it's not the ending you thought it was going to be, you're writing the ending now, does that ever change the beginning?
Yes, it does change the beginning sometimes.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. Not all the time, but yeah, of course. Because then, you figure out what the ending is and you have to figure out, okay, how is that going to make sense with this beginning? So you have to change the beginning so that the ending makes sense.
A little while back, you mentioned true characters. How do you achieve writing true characters, or to you, what makes a true character?
That they have their own voice.
Okay.
That they have their own life journey, and that they have. This probably is going to sound stupid, but they have a purpose in the play.
I hope so.
Well, I mean, because sometimes, they're like, you'll go see a play and you'll go, why was that character in the play? Right. So they have to have an important purpose.
Okay, I see. Yeah.
An important purpose in the play.
Okay, so you're not when you say, okay, in my head, I'm thinking protagonist or antagonist, but you achieve that and you try to make that happen for even the most minor characters that you might put in a play.
Yeah.
Okay. Rather than just spear carrier number 2.
No.
Right.
No, every character. But, I write plays because we produce our plays.
Right.
I can't write a play that has 20 characters in it.
Yeah.
I have to write a play that has, 6, 8 characters, at the most 12.
Okay.
Right? So, of course, actors can double up or whatever, if they have to. But, so I write plays with, small casts. So it's easy for everyone to have a purpose, a life, a voice, So it's not like you're doing that for 20 characters.
Right. And then when you approach character, when you're writing your characters, do you just write and let them tell you who they are as you write, or do you do like the background and their past and all the gobbledygook?
I don't do that.
I don't either. I just like I'm always curious how playwrights approach character, because you've got to really I got to know everything about them, how they feel politically, what they want on their pizza, things like that.
Yeah,
and
no, I don't get that detailed.
Yeah.
But that sometimes becomes a problem in the rehearsal room.
How so?
Because an actor will say, so can you tell me, something very specific about the character? Like, what sign is she? Or, that kind of a thing. And those are things that I usually have not figured out yet.
Well, I don't know if you feel this way. I know that sometimes as writers, we get into this flow state, and we write things that actors will discover that you may not have even realized was there.
Yeah, that happens a lot.
And so when actors ask you these questions, I don't know.
Yeah, sometimes I just say I don't know. Sure. I haven't thought of it, or I'll think of something right on the spot. But No, I don't write bios for all my characters or anything. I mean, I do have to know something about their life,
Sure.
right? But I don't get really specific about what they like to eat or, anything like that. Unless it's part of the story.
Sure.
Unless it's a, important part of the story. So, if she's a pizza maker, well, then, you want to know what kind of pizza she likes to make.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was directing something, a piece that a friend of mine had written, and she had an actress go to her. She's like, well, what is about this? And what do you think her response is like, I don't know. Go talk to James. Go talk to the director, because again, that's that flow state that certain things just pop out, and then there's things that connect that you never intended or had anything.
Yeah, for sure. And a lot of times I say, I don't know, or they'll say, well, they'll have an idea, and I'll go, yeah, that sounds great, or no, I don't think so,
Do you overwrite?
Sometimes.
And do you edit while you write?
Sometimes I edit, but usually when I'm in the rehearsal room is when I start editing what I've overwritten, because that's when it becomes really obvious.
At what point, does there ever become I don't want to say a conflict of interest. I don't think that's necessarily the right phrase for it, but to where there might be a disagreement between you and the director?
Yes. I mean,
okay.
Not too often, but, he'll make some recommendations about, lines that, maybe aren't necessary. And sometimes I agree and sometimes I don't, and I'm pretty easy. I'm not a playwright who will, fight with the director about,
sure.
This word or that word or this line or that line. I mean, whatever's better for the play, whatever's better for the production, because you don't write plays just to write plays. You write plays because you want them to be produced, I think.
Right, yeah. I hope so, yeah.
Yeah, and that's when you can really tell if your plays work. When you get in the rehearsal room, if you see actors struggling with the language, or a director having a hard time figuring out a scene or something, I usually look at that scene or that dialogue and say, how can I make this easier for them? So I don't, unless it's something really, really important to the story, I'm usually, pretty easy about let's just make this work.
Sure. Did you see the production in Denver?
Yes.
What were the differences between the ones that the production that you did, and what was the difference with what they did, if anything? And did you enjoy it?
I enjoyed it. It's a smaller theater.
Okay.
Without the kinds of resources we have at our theater.
Okay.
They didn't have a lot of design. So that was, the big difference. They're not, I wouldn't call them professional full-time actors, or people who make their living as actors. So, but there were some things that they did that were really beautiful. I mean, the guy who played the father, he found some things that we never found.
Wow.
And it was very moving, and so yeah, I enjoyed it. And what was important was that I feel like the audience in Denver, even though it's a story about a family from Los Angeles, really related to it. And it was a pretty diverse audience. It wasn't just Latinos. It was, diverse. There were African Americans or white people. There were, and everybody kind of related to it. So that made me happy. Yeah.
Do you think? I'm curious because you said that there was things that the actor playing the father discovered things that you guys had never realized. Do you think that has anything to do with the fact that you all are so close to the piece and you're working so in depth that you kind of can't pull that lens back to kind of recognize those things?
Maybe. I mean, it could be. I didn't think of that when I saw it. I just thought, he approached the character in a different way, from a different angle. He was much more vulnerable.
Okay.
Right. And I wrote the character to be vulnerable, and I thought the actors who played that character in our productions played it that way, but this guy really nailed it.
And I guess the reason why I ask that is because it's because when you're in the rehearsal process and you're really ingrained in that piece, you don't have that opportunity to kind of get a different vision because you're kind of writing in a way still while you're rehearsing, so you don't opposed to taking a finished project and then getting a fresh untarnished, I don't know if untarnished is the right word for it, you know what I mean, where it's like, okay, I can take a step back and really get a different vision.
When you write a play,
and that's not criticism by any means. I'm just curious about.
No, I know.
Yeah.
When you write a play, or when I write a play, I have a vision of it in my mind.
Sure. Yeah.
And when we do the play, it's never the same. It's always different from what I imagined it would be when I was writing it. And maybe it's true because we do work with a lot of the same actors, and I know these actors very well, and what they do, the director knows these actors very well. And so, it could be that, we're so close to it that we don't know how to let it breathe or whatever. I didn't think of it that way, but it's possible.
Yeah, I'm just curious because it's, I've never been in a situation like that, and now that you give me two separate experiences, I'm curious. I'm like, and then it popped in my head. I'm like, wow, I wonder if that has that effect, if it does affect the process or the end results, if you will.
Well, I mean, I guess it was the first time that I wasn't in the rehearsal process. For that play. Yeah. I had absolutely nothing to do with it except for giving them permission to do the play. Sure. And then I went to opening night. So I had no idea. They never called me, never asked me a question about anything. And so I had no idea what the production was going to be.
Sure. Were there any moments where it's like, oh, I wouldn't have done it that way?
Of course.
Okay. Fair enough.
Of course.
Yeah. Okay.
And the few times when people have asked me to do my plays, and I go see them, it's always hard.
Sure.
It's always hard. Yeah. I always suffer a little bit. I always, my heart hurts a little bit because, it's not what I envisioned for it.
Sure.
But it's always beautiful. It's always beautiful, that these people liked my play enough to, rehearse it, produce it. I think, that's beautiful. Whether or not, I would have done it that way or not, doesn't matter at that point. What matters is that they did the work. They did the work, and it's always, work is always good to me. Work is always good. And for people like today, when we did a run through of the play, that opened on April 18th. And before I went into the dressing room, talked to the women, because it's all women in the play. Okay. And so I was in the elevator, and I was, just thinking about my life and thinking, wow, who does this, right? And so I walked into the dressing room and I said, hello, ladies. And I'm like, what a crazy life we lead, huh? And all of them were, yeah, it was so crazy. I'm like, yeah, we make up stories, and then you guys go on stage and pretend to be somebody else. And it's so crazy. It's such a crazy, beautiful life, right? How lucky are we that, that we get to do this. So back to, going to see a production that, may not be what I envisioned it to be. It's still good. It's still good that they did the work.
On that note, what are you working on right now? Besides Storyteller of East LA opened on April 18th and runs through May 17th at Los Angeles Theater Center in downtown Los Angeles. What else are you working on? Have you started another project yet? Well,
we have the reading at South Coast Rep on May 3rd, Blow Away the Clouds. And then we're doing an adaptation of Antigone.
Oh, wow.
At the Getty Villa in the outdoor amphitheater.
Nice.
Yeah. So, yeah, we did a workshop of that. So that's really the next big work that, we'll be working on.
Nice. And then where can people find your work? Besides the
Los Angeles
Theater Center from April 18th and through May 17th.
Well, you can. The trilogy is published by Samuel French.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So a Mexican trilogy by Evelina Fernandez. It's not Samuel French anymore. It's Concord.
Yeah.
So
sad. Yeah.
So that's where you can get the trilogy. And then I have, plays that are part of anthologies. I can't remember the names of the books right now.
Are you on
Contemporary plays by women of color.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Check it out.
Yeah.
Are you on New Play Exchange or anything like that, or website?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm on New Play Exchange.
Okay. And then finally, are you on the socials?
Yeah. Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. What else is there?
Everything. Blue Sky, X.
Blue Sky.
Threads.
Yeah.
Friendster. MySpace.
MySpace.
Do you know the handles for those, or I can always research them if you want me to include them in the bio.
Evelina Fern on Instagram. And I don't know the other ones.
That's fun. We can research them. And we'll include the ticket link for the show.
Thank you.
It opened on April 18th.
Thanks so much.
My pleasure. And Evelina Fernandez, thank you for coming on to this episode of Playwright Spotlight.
Thank you so much. It was fun.
Thank you. Thank you for tuning into this episode of Playwright Spotlight. Again, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment down below, and share the show with a friend. If you're listening to us on your favorite podcast platform, be sure to leave a 5-star review and subscribe to the channel. And in the meantime, and until we see each other again, keep writing.